Welcome back, everybody. Today we've got something that I got a couple of questions about when I showed off that displaylink panel. And basically it came down to, can't I get an adapter to do that? And the answer that I was giving people originally was, yes, but it's expensive. And then for a while that panel was sold out. I believe it's back in stock. I'll check when we're done. However, I ended up doing a bit of digging around and I found this thing, which I don't actually know what's in here. So I bought this on Amazon for $10 and it appears to be a DisplayLink device, but it's not from any vendor I would normally purchase it from, and a USB 3 to HDMI adapter is normally like $50. So I bought this, and we're gonna hook it up and see if it works. It came with a little CD that I'm not even sure was actually burned. And it's a CDR, so it's not stamped. And this is USB 3.0, 2.0 to HDMI adapter, drivers on the CD, customer service, and this is where things get weird, but weirder. So this says it supports 1080p, and this says support is at kovan@outlook.com. This says customer service is ticoffee1688 which just smacks of consistency. FL2000, those don't look like standard DisplayLink drivers, but that's what I'm hoping this will work with anyway. I'm hoping that it's just a knockoff using a DisplayLink chipset or a cheaper DisplayLink set than is normally in the more recent ones, because the newer ones, they'll say they support 2560, 1440, or 4K. This says none of those things. And we're just gonna throw my PC off to the side here, put our USB-C panel there, and yes, the irony here is not lost on me. Normally I would just plug this panel into my laptop's Thunderbolt port, but I want to see if this works. And then we'll talk about why would you use this instead of the other solution in a minute. Assuming it works, which is a big assumption. Well, we don't appear to have worked. Let's check our display settings and see if I just need to tell it to... No, Windows doesn't detect a different monitor. So it shows up. Windows detects it as a USB video device. This'll be fun. Let's see what software... Oh, I don't have a CD-ROM drive on my laptop. So let's see if I can look up the drivers for this. So this says it is a FL2000. Let's look it up. Well, that makes it a Fresco Logic display controller. And let's go ahead. This is what it is. Fresco Logic says it's a USB 3 display controller that supports 1920 by 1080. Compatible with USB class definition for audio video devices. External SPI flash to facilitate low-cost driver on-board solutions. I don't think they did that here, but let's take a look. Nope. I've seen that before. Not a huge fan of the driver on-board stuff. However, let's see if I can update the driver Alright, so that appears to be the Fresco Logic driver package. Unbelievable. And it works. We're running in mirroring mode right now. And there we are extended. Okay, so that was grab some color bars. Okay, so that worked. I had to do a little bit more work than just plug it in, which isn't too bad. I wish the Fresco Logic driver was easier to find. They do include a CD, so if you have an optical drive, you can clearly use that. Otherwise, you got to dig around a little bit to find it. And it seems to work just fine. Now, the caveats that I mentioned with the DisplayLink panel still apply here, where you're not going to want to push video over this. So, let's go back to why. Well, the UM760OF is, or was, out of stock for a while. Couldn't get it. And they were, where they were available, like $200-$300. They appear to be about $100 again. There's a couple of different versions of it. And I'll link to those in the description here. But anyway. So if you couldn't get the other panel and you were using one of the Raspberry Pi panels, you'd still want something like this if you wanted to avoid looping cables back into your system. And at $10, this was an attractive option. I don't like it as much as the DisplayLink ones. And we're going to pop it apart in a second here and see what's inside it. Because I'm not convinced that's a genuine Fresco Logic chip. I could be wrong. But at $9.99, that seems too good to be true. Now, the other side of that is 7 inches isn't what people want all the time. There are 5-inch screens, there are 10-inch screens, plenty of other options there that someone may have wanted depending on what case they're modifying. Now, I'm not going to say that you have to use a 7-inch screen. If you want to put an LCD in your case, that's insane. But I am going to tell you that you want something like this instead of drilling holes or cutting notches or looping cables back through and taking an output off your video card. So if you want to use one of those Raspberry Pi screens that comes in a variety of sizes, this is clearly a good option. You still have some of the same limits that we had with the MIMO panel regarding having to find a USB port on your computer. Now this says it needs 3.0. There's internal USB 3 headers, and this will clearly output 1920 1080. Let's cut it open, see what's inside. I think if I give a little bit of prying to this piece of plastic here, and the one on the back, that I can open this non-destructively. And I could be wrong. But we're going to try. And we're going to try with something less sharp so I don't cut myself. Because I could feel that was going to happen already. Alright, well, it looks like we are going to have to cut. And hopefully I can do this without cutting me. There we go. And I'll be damned. An actual Fresco Logic chip, and something that I didn't expect to see on a device so cheap. All of the USB pins are actually connected. Fresco Logic 200 is what it says here, which it's actually a 2000. FL200 plus AGO2, 1029, HSS GD, 202000424. Huh. Little weird that it didn't detect that there was a valid Fresco Logic driver on Windows Update. Oh. But anyway, and that's a nice flat PCB. None of these components are really as tall as this enclosure, so although I had a little bit of fighting with it to get it out of there, now that it's out, it wasn't so bad. And now that I know how it was assembled, it was basically just kind of press fit together. So they've got aluminum that they must have, while it was still warm, pressed these pieces of plastic in and then allowed it to cool, which creates a friction fit that is a pain to take apart. I ended up having to cut the metal to do so, but that's not too terrible. And we already talked about why would you use one of these? Well, you want to put an LCD in your case, or maybe you just need another 1080p video out. There are times when you just need another screen for spreadsheet data. Now, long term, I don't know about the quality of the Fresco Logic chip in here compared to a DisplayLink chip. I've had mixed experience with USB devices in general. I'd say this isn't going to last as long as one of the more expensive ones, just due to, there's no heat sink on the chip. It's kind of enclosed. I'd say I'd have some thermal concerns if you're using this for 10 hours plus a day. And overall, the board quality seems fine, although I've got one chip here that I don't really recognize that seems to be involved as well. I think that's the AGO2 that was mentioned. AGO2 digital signal conversion chip. Weird. Why would I need digital signal conversion on an HDMI device? Unless that Fresco Logic is actually a VGA device? There it is, integrated high performance VGA DAC. This makes so much sense now. This is not a proper HDMI device. This is a VGA signal that's being converted to HDMI inside. So this is a two-chip solution for what should be a one-chip device. And that probably means that they got these Fresco Logic 2000 devices at a steal. I can't imagine that anyone is buying bulk VGA adapters unless they're doing something like this with them. So that's definitely a point against this as far as signal clarity is concerned. But honestly, if you're driving an 800, 600, or a 1280, 720 5-inch LCD, you're not going to care. This is going to look just fine. Cost-wise, when the UM760OF is available at its normal MSRP, you're not really going to save anything going this route. You got to figure, and you're actually going to end up with some extra cable mess, because you have to figure that's a single cable solution, one and done. And worst case scenario, you need a USB 2.0 to IDC to Type A header. Great. You need this, which is actually 3.0 if you want to go above 800, 600, I believe it says. Yeah, 800, 600 at 2.0. And that's just a bandwidth thing. It needs data. So you need a 3.0 port and a 2.0 port to drive that panel, which means you've still got two cables to contend with, and potentially you still need 8 IDC to Type A adapters. which, once again, not a huge deal, easy enough to find, but now you need 2 of them, and it can just add up. You got to figure one of those is like $50. This is 10. If you need 2 IDC adapters, those can be $10 each. And now I'm up to $90, $100 again. So, but that does give you more flexibility for smaller or bigger screens than the Mimo panel, and maybe you get one that supports touch, which could be a nice feature. The Mimo Touch is available, but is much more expensive. And anyway, long story short, I just wanted to present another option for putting a panel in a case, and that would be this little thing. And I will link to the best source for the drivers that I can find when I get a chance. I'll see if I can include that in the description for the video. Overall, for $10, for a personal project, I have no issues with this, especially if I wanted to do something like unsolder these pins and replace this cable. It's got nice big pads that I wouldn't have an issue with that. Anything that I have to support in the field, I just don't think the cost savings is worth it. A proper displaylink USB 3 to HDMI is like $30, $40. From a support standpoint, if $20 saves me phone calls and replacing this thing 6 months from now, a year from now, it's worth it. From a tinkering standpoint, if this thing cost $50, I wouldn't have ripped it apart on the bench. If I had broken this, I was out $10, not $50. So that's just a value balance to weigh in when you do something like this. And the fact that I can open it up and it's nice and flat, you can make a little enclosure and hide this somewhere in a case and not have this big shiny silver thing easily enough. That's fantastic. I love that. A couple of minutes with a razor blade and it wasn't too terrible to open, especially now that I know how it was assembled. Although I wish I had not snapped the tip off my brand new utility knife blade. That's besides the point. Alright, closing out. No sponsored parts this time. This is something I grabbed myself because I wanted to continue a dialogue and answer a couple of questions we had. And as always, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, leave them in the description below. We love those. And you know what? If you guys ask things that need a follow-up that require a video, I love that. That gives me an idea for something else to do. As always, I want to thank anyone who helps support Pocketables, be it through using our Amazon affiliate links, which is actually how this was purchased, supporting us on Patreon, or just subscribing on YouTube. Every little bit helps there. I want to thank Electrix for providing our opening and closing themes. And finally, thank you for watching.